Yeah, sure. So my name's Jordy. My pronouns are they, them. So I work with the National Union of Students, which is the peak representative body for all post-secondary students around Australia. I'm their national queer slash LGBTQI plus officer. So basically in that role, I specifically run campaigns and represent queer students around the country, and basically address key issues within universities, but also that impact queer students, but also on a national level, so on a federal level, and within state levels as well, when I get the chance. I study a Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of event management. So basically, when I get the time, I do some coursework on anthropology and event management. So it's a bit of fun that way. And yeah, like basically, that's sort of a bit about me. I guess, like in general, I've been around the LGBTQI plus advocacy space for a few years now. Been like done it through my university and now doing it on a national level. So yeah. So yeah, like I said, basically, I represent the student, like queer students around the country, and their interests. It's uh, just like any issues that sort of face on a university and on a national issue. So basically, earlier this year, we obviously dealt with the religious discrimination bill, for instance, within the federal parliament. So the department that I manage or that I work in, the NUS Queer slash LGBTQI plus officer department, basically ran a campaign calling on an engagement with students to sort of write to their MPs to tell them that to vote no and vote against this bill, just because it obviously allowed religious exemptions where essentially you could discriminate against a person for who they are, which was obviously not great. So we were able to help mobilize a bit. We obviously weren't the only ones advocating in this space, so it was a joint effort between our department and other community organizations and religious organizations as well that advocated against this bill. We have done work where we've advocated for queer spaces on campuses, which obviously provide like a safe space on campus for queer students, provide opportunities of community and sense of belonging on campus that queer students tend to need. So we've basically been addressing key issues like accessibility around these as well. As many campuses tend to have spaces and that aren't accessible, so we want to try and make sure that everyone who wants to enter the space can be able to. So we've addressed key issues around that. We've obviously been working on a campaign recently around stopping dead naming within universities as well. So this is a campaign that's it's close to my heart because I deal with dead naming at my own university, unfortunately, as well. But it's something I was able to engage with a lot of queer officers and representatives around the country, have chats with them, and they basically told me that this was an ongoing issue. We did a survey earlier this year, and we're currently putting pressure on this to ensure universities are accountable and make sure that they are safe and welcoming spaces that can ensure like the well-being of, in particular, transgender, gender diverse, and non-binary students. But obviously, dead naming doesn't also impact that community. I'm well aware of that. With like, whilst that's my lens in particular, it also provides benefits to those who are obviously fleeing certain circumstances like domestic violence issues, and basically ensuring that they have the opportunity to not be dead named within universities. So widely, we obviously deal with a lot of issues, and it's been an like they haven't all achieved what they need to yet, but it's small stepping stones, as you could say. Like, yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of ongoing issues. So basically, one of the failures this year in particular that can be highlighted with universities is, so earlier this year there was a report called the National Student Safety Survey report, which released results about basically the issues around sexual assault and sexual harassment, and basically disproportionately, which we already knew, or well, I knew anyways, transgender, non-binary, and gender diverse people were impacted by this, and LGBTQI plus students were impacted by this issue as well. And I think a key failing on universities is the inclusivity of these students, or making sure this services or the classrooms in place are actually welcoming ones, or like can actually ensure that students feel comfortable. So there tends to be issues where essentially universities, we've been dealing with issues where universities are allowing lecturers, for instance, to speak on like to promote transphobic rhetoric, for instance. So basically, there have been students who've been like calling this out and saying like, no, this needs to stop. Like, it actually provide like we're here to be provided with an education. We're not meant to be provided with an issue where we're feeling uncomfortable, feel disgusted to the extent that we have to pull out of a class that's actually compulsory, you know. And like basically there's other ongoing issues as well. So universities don't really recognize or tend to, like they might recognize it, but they haven't done enough, is around LGBTQI plus health, mental health as well. So this is an ongoing issue where students feel like they can't actually access the vital services they need to, in general, to be able to seek help when they need it, you know. So there's a lot of ongoing issues, unfortunately. In terms of like what universities are doing better, like I will like acknowledge that there are plenty of staff members on campus who are allies. They obviously there are ally programs for a reason. The issue is just like they're optional. And matter of fact is like this is like it's only for people who really keen to promote this. And people who have the thoughts that they don't believe in it or don't get involved. It tends to be an educational issue then. So we'll bring awareness on like key LGBTQI plus issues and people, and then it being flagged, you know. Um, yeah, like I sound badly saying like universities are done. I know there are universities that do try to make the efforts, but like and there are definitely teachers and staff like out there who are really trying their best to make sure that the spaces are as welcoming. But there's ongoing issues where students still feel like they can't even access the toilet that they feel best associates with their gender, for instance, that sort of thing. So like it's an ongoing battle, unfortunately. So yeah. Yeah, like wow, like that's a very wide question. And like I mean, look, I think universities don't think, or like there are institutions and organizations that don't believe that they're being tokenistic, you know, they're trying to like this showing this person, like which is obviously great, to bring some awareness. But matter of fact is just like it's there's a lot of institutional and structural issues. And I think advocating at least like through different channels and trying to change it within is always a good way to go forward. So like flagging it, like in a university circumstance, you could probably try and flag it with a staff member or try to arrange the relevant meetings with the relevant people on the higher end. So the deputy vice chancellors, the vice chancellors, you know, that sort of thing, and have these discussions and be like, well, like, can you like we've noticed this issue? Can you change it? You know, I know universities tend to have certain committees as well. There's some that have like diversity and inclusion committees, you know, and it seems like when they were created, it kind of seems somewhat tokenistic as well, as you mentioned. But I think always being vocal and providing a voice and providing pressure is always good to go forward. I think in general, showing your allyship is always be like trying to get involved with the campaign, but not obviously being a voice for the community. The people who are relevant is the people in that community, you know, like their voices matter. So like I say to a lot of people, if you're an ally, speak with us, not speak for us, you know? And I think that's sort of something where a lot of institutions like universities fail as well. Like they like seem to think have these ideas that they've got the right idea, or like they listen to us, but then essentially totally go from a different angle or totally different lens, you know, which is unfortunate. And like yeah, like there's a lot of ways like I think bringing awareness and like getting the relevant tools and tools in as well to sort of bring awareness and learning as well is always good as well. So like it's often, well, universities in particular, they usually have like a nice budget to sort of spend on like professional development, you know. So and it's the same place with a lot of workplaces as well. So like this is like something they could expand on and sort of like reach out to certain relevant organizations that are actually taking the aim to build on more inclusive like working environments, you know, or like and actually like tackling the status quo, making sure that basically the voices like they see it from the well, not necessarily from our lens, but also like they sort of see what we're dealing with, what issues there are, like how their language kind of matters, you know, because like inclusive language does matter. There's universities that have guides, but essentially staff don't really see that. Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff in honest opinion. And like obviously I focus a lot on universities, but it's also like on a federal level, you know, it's having meetings with relevant MPs, flagging the issues, you know, like basically saying, look, in this legislation, this is bad because matter of fact, it's just like it doesn't include certain certain protections, you know. So like for instance, there's been a lot of work recently on anti-discrimination legislation and the wording of that. So it's like making sure, and MPs kind of overlook this issue at times. Like some are very good, but obviously there's a lot of legislation within this like federal and state legislation, you know. So it's often us being the voices and trying to like make people aware. And I think just basically being the listening ears is a key part of it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that was like a really nice and substantial answer. Thank you for that. So you sort of touched on a couple of issues in this interview so far. So you talked about dead naming, misgendering, the religious discrimination bill. So could you like super quickly step us through like what dead naming and what misgendering is and explain like why it's so harmful and what to do if you like accidentally misgender or dead name someone? And I feel like a lot of people, especially like allies, if they accidentally misgender or dead name someone, they often don't know how to react. And I think it's sort of like important in order to like, not make people feel uncomfortable, in order to like know how to like respond appropriately so that you don't make the person that you've just misgendered uncomfortable. So could you just step us through like what to do in that situation, what dead naming is, what misgendering is, and all of that? Yeah.
Yeah, so dead naming is where so obviously when we're born, we're assigned a name at birth, same with being assigned like a gender at birth as well. Basically what dead naming is the occurrence where so for instance, someone like is the occurrence where a name is used that someone disassociates with and has changed, you know. So for a lot of transgender, gender diverse and non-binary people, they change their names for very good reasons because matter of fact it's just like it's a dead name because it associates with their previous gender or like the gender that they were assigned at birth. I'd say. Um, Basically as well, like the thing is like it's similar circumstance with misgendering as well. So like basically misgendering is where you sort of assume the gender of an individual rather than asking. And basically that has like similar ramifications because your assumption of who they are can basically like expose like sort of like expose them to certain ongoing issues where within mental health, for instance. So like Basically, there's issues with gender dysphoria as well. So like basically an individual could say like if you've been misgendered or dead named, this in general can also like cause issues around those things. They're basically the reason why like what you can do to correct yourselves on this issue is basically if there are records in place, you see a name and then like a preferred name, especially around dead naming, make sure you use the preferred name. I like to use the term chosen name or true name, basically, because that's sort of what like the name that a person associates with isn't like preferred, like it's not a preference, it's just this is their name, you know. And I think basically if you are corrected and you're told about this being the case, just stop using the dead name, you know. That's the number one thing you should do, and then essentially correct yourself straight away. So if you catch, like, even stop yourself mid-moment if you try to say the dead name as well, you know, like that's a way to be like just basically, and then as well say like if you wanted to apologize and just say sorry, I almost said this, but I know your name is this, you know. Like that's the thing. I think depending on the circumstance as well, like I mean it's different every time with dead naming and misgendering, but I often say like like when you apologize for dead naming or misgendering, it can also often cause like a bit of like I'm trying to think of the best words. Often it can cause like it obviously causes discomfort, but as well it's just like people make a fuss over it, like not necessarily like a bad fuss, but they just say, oh, sorry, like they're very apologetic about it and everything. And just like just acknowledge it and just don't make a big deal is a good thing, because if you make it a big deal, then that's just like kind of just bit like kind of bring big red lights, you know. And yeah, like basically like the issue with issues along with misgendering and dead naming is issues around privacy and information of individuals. So this is like it's an invasion of privacy if you know of like a person's dead name, like dead name, for instance, and you use it against them, you know. It really is flagging a lot of red lights, because matter of fact, it's just like you are exposing them as trans without their permission. You are not really, you're just basically abusing it against their rights. And pretty much like there's ongoing issues where, matter of fact, is it's like, by like not acknowledging that you're dead naming or misgendering an individual, it really just jeopardizes them and puts them at continued risk of like bullying, harassment, physical violence, and psychosocial harm. And because there's a lot of vulnerability within the like in particular within the trans community. So basically it's really important that you don't dead name or misgender someone, and if you do, just and you get corrected, just accept it and just automatically continue using the associated name that person goes by and the gender that the person goes by. So yeah. Um, I think I said it earlier, basically. Like speak with us, don't speak for us. You know, like actually just generally show your allyship by actually acknowledging that you're not part, like if you're not part of the community, that you can't actually represent our interests. Like basically just like always like come to like the protests and everything, and just like share posts if you need to, like on social media. Like they're always great ways to be like, oh, like, and just say like it's not good that this is happening. I stand with this community, you know. Matter of fact, it's just like it's just so important that you don't speak over us, you know. Like the thing is like we're a voice, like all of our voices matter, but in the end of the day, the communities that like on the issues that impact us, it's so relevant without like if you don't have our permission to sort of just acknowledge that you just want to stand there, or you want to stand by with us rather than speak for us, you know. So yeah, and I think that offers really like a lot of power towards this really acknowledging the voices, especially of trans, gender diverse and non-binary people. So